What's up, everyone? We're going to do a double feature here on the second channel because I do these reflection videos where I talk about the editing process, the writing process, the thought process behind videos on the main channel, MML's commentaries, the main show, the main deal. But I've sort of fell behind on them. I haven't done them in a minute. Just a lot of things going on and just never really got the time or the opportunity to do it, or I don't know, really the interest, I guess. But I'm feeling in that kind of mood now, and I need to knock these out because I recorded the audio for the next video. And as much as I would love to have all these projects all the time, that's part of why I like doing these videos, honestly, is because then I can see the projects forever, you know? But I have to delete them. I have limited hard drive space, and I'm not about to start, storing all these projects, backing them all up, getting a bunch of raids or something like that, doing a full, I don't know. It's not my budget, not really something I'm interested in at this point. My 4 terabyte hard drive for game footage and camera footage is all I really need right now. So with that, I'm doing a double feature. So there's this video you're watching now is about the Thomas video, and then also uploaded at the same time, it's going to be a video about the Mario Kart video that was part of the micro essay mixtape, and then later released on my channel at the start of September, so about a month ago at this point. And then I can delete all those projects and the Mario Odyssey one for that matter. I could probably just delete the Mario Odyssey one and then leave the other two, but probably just clear all of them out and then get started on the next video. And then I'll kind of treat this as a little bit of an update for people that don't follow me on Twitter but somehow subscribe to this channel, which is a really weird niche of people. But I've been doing a lot of writing, so the next 2 videos after that are pretty close to done. So I might actually make the small changes to the video that's supposed to come after this next video and start recording the audio for that also, just because I would like to get both of them out by the end of the year, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'd rather the videos be good. And I did, the season 2 started in March, so I have this weird internal thing where it's like, oh, I should get a video out every other month, and it usually does. There's always a time where it doesn't happen. Last year with Danganronpa, right, it didn't happen, but that was because that was an hour-long video, and also because as I've gone further throughout this whole YouTube thing, I think I've taken more time in each step of the process because I want a particular vision, a particular thing, or something like that. Where something like even the Queens of the Stone Age video, which started out last year, I wouldn't say that had the same kind of vision and precision, I guess is the right word, put into it as something like the 8th grade video or the Danganronpa video, right, from last year. So this year, I'm really happy with most of the videos that have come out. I did mention in the last reflection I did that I still viewed that the objectivity video was better than the Mario Odyssey video, and that opinion has honestly only strengthened ever since, especially when going into writing these future videos. Mostly because I think one of the things I like is there being, and this is in the Mario Odyssey video too, I like there being a sort of catch, right? I like it where it's like, instead of just making a point, I want the point to mean something more in and of itself that isn't necessarily explicitly said. So with something like the objectivity video, right, the point of that video to some people may just be, oh, he's saying objectivity doesn't exist, right, and just that inherent argument. But the subtext of that might be something along the lines of, oh, but he's presenting this video to us objectively, as if he's some authority, but is he really an authority? He's saying that it doesn't exist. So what makes him any, better of a critical thinker on this subject than I am? And that's sort of what I was, some of what I was trying to get at the end of the video. But, you pull out of it whatever you do. So with this Thomas video, for instance, the reason why I say that is because this video isn't a video about Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, it is, but the way I viewed it, the way I wanted to write it, is I've been wanting to make a video about video editing, and the reason why is because that's what I do. At the time when I wrote this script, there's the bit starts here. Here's a fun story. This says, so a few weeks ago at work. So a few weeks ago. Oh, I just realized this is on the TV audio. It's gonna pick up in the mic. So I have to do it this way. I have to like turn this way down. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Did it. So I say, so a few weeks ago, I was looking up the Thomas blah, blah, blah. I don't know exactly where it is because I can't hear it now. But I say, a few weeks ago, I was looking up the Thomas the Tank Engine theme online. Well, that was at my old job, and I've since acquired a new job, which is much, I would say it's much less, I'm trying to think of the right word, and I can't think of it. But let's just go with, it's much more like in an industry, in a sect, it's much more professional, professionally done, kind of stuff, just by necessity, by the type of videos that they are. So I wouldn't be looking at Thomas the Tank Engine intro online at my current job. Let's just put it that way. But I wrote this script because actually at that old job, and I'm not going to say where it was, what it was, but this video sort of grew out of a place of, I think the best way to put it is dissatisfaction, because I would go to work and I would sort of regurgitate content all the time. I'd be making the same things over and over again. And I think that, depending on when you're talking to like, if you're like a freelancer or something like that, and this applies to any industry, right? If you're a freelancer in any industry, or if you're client facing in any regard, you're going to find that client is often going to basically ask you to break the fundamental rules of the thing that you're being paid to do. So if it's graphic design, they're gonna tell you, oh, put a thick black border around this that looks really out of place, or I mean, even that, like, I mean, there's some exceptions to it. I'm trying to think of a really bad graphic design like move. I mean, that's the best one I can think of. Like, the stereotypical, like, huge black border with a drop shadow and a glow effect, like that kind of thing. And, like, people will ask you to do that just because that's the look that they want, even if that look is, like, at least given your training in the industry, perhaps worse, right? So one of the motivations behind this video was basically to say, look, like, a lot of times people are going to, there's the whole like fix it and post thing that I was talking about in here, but ultimately what it comes down to is I think it's like you need to have this. I feel like if you want to really make a video and you really want to make this thing good, you need to have an appreciation for every step of the process, and you can't just hand it to someone and say make it look good, because it's not going to happen. And that's sort of the explicit text in the video, right? Where I'm basically saying, like, yeah, you can hand this thing to an editor, and yeah, editing tools can do a lot, but through this approach of fix it and post, you lose a lot of the inherent artistic merit for one. But I also think just in a more technological sense, I think you just lose a lot of fidelity through that approach. And I think what happens a lot is just like you hand a photo to someone and just tell them to Photoshop it, make it look better, or you record audio off of an iPhone, and like an iPhone, like, I don't know, like an iPhone 4, and then they're like, oh, make it sound better. I mean, just similar to video or similar to photos or similar to anything, like you only can make something as good as it is, as the original thing that you have, which is sort of the point I was making here with these bits. So, but I think the larger point, right, to a video like this isn't just saying, one, it's not a video about Thomas the Tank Engine, and then two, right, like I said, it's a video about video editing, but it's also not a video about video editing, because it's a video that I would argue has a sort of larger context to it. It's a larger statement that can be said about a lot of creative fields. The idea that you take the time to make sure that every step of your process is good, instead of just having this sort of fix it and post mentality, because the fix it and post mentality is, I don't care enough to do it again, right? And that's sort of going back to like the whole like, oh, I'm trying to get these videos out by the end of the year, but it's not going to happen. It's because I don't like that mentality. I'll go back and reshoot things multiple times over to make it look right. I'll record my voiceover audio multiple times to make it sound right. And if you go in here, actually, I think there's a good example. There's at least a few good examples in this video, I think, or maybe I'm thinking of the Mario Odyssey video. If you look here, you see Thomas, right? So that was all the voiceover originally recorded there. But if there's ever a point where you see like Thomas Fix or Thomas 2, like that would be an instance where I would be doing it again. And honestly, I don't see any here. So I guess this video I was lucky, but a lot of times what will happen is I'll come back and I'll have to re-record a section, not because the first take was bad per se, and I should mention that when I do voiceover, I do multiple takes for every single line. I usually go a paragraph at a time. I know people that go a sentence at a time, to be very specific about those kinds of things. For me, I think I need to have the full paragraph because I'm inherently a fast talker, and I do try and slow down with my voiceover, of course, but there's sort of a thing about how sentences flow into each other that I just sort of need that whole paragraph in order to really read something correctly. But yeah, so it looks like we're good on that element, but there's a few other neat little video production bits that happen in this video that I sort of want to point out. So we're just going to kind of scrub through as we go through here. So like we show the intro. I think the biggest thing here that you're dealing with, right, is that you have a show, right? You have shows, you have content that's in this archaic 4:3 format. Not archaic. Archaic is the wrong word. It's in a 4:3 format where now most video is shot in some form of widescreen. And now you see a lot of film. Film is the wrong word because it's a lot of digital film now. But like, you know, film refers to movies, I guess. You see them shot in like 2:1 or even wider and less high aspect ratios as well. And I've seen YouTubers do it in 2:1 as well. And part of that has to do with your smartphone, right? Because a lot of smartphones are wider now than they're tall. Or I guess if you hold them sideways, they're wider than they're tall. But if you hold them the normal phone way, they're taller than they are wide. So a 2:1 fills the screen of the phone better. Which is an interesting point. But, you know, I like my 16:9, I guess. So the thing here is that when you're switching between this content to this content, you need some sort of context, right, in order to make it logical. So if I just had this and then I cut from here to like, I don't know, some 16:9 show or something like that, or if I cut to like me doing the voiceover, like I don't know where I need to find where that bit is, where I turn over. Or if I cut to like outside, I don't know. If I cut somewhere else, then you not only have the dissonance of, okay, but like, where's he going? But you also have the dissonance of we're in a completely different aspect ratio now. And people with these black bars, like that's part of the reason why a lot of YouTubers have those like backgrounds behind like game footage. The reason why they do it is because the black bars are viewed as more distracting when you suddenly introduce a lot of color into that space. If they remain black the whole time, they're not distracting. But when you introduce, you know, things like that, then it's a problem. So what my early solution was to have some crappy border, right? But now my solution, and I'll show you if I find a good spot where that happens, is well, first to just use a lot of 4:3 content, but when I have to, I'll do something like a fade black or something like that. Fade in, fade out, because then you're not worried about the black at that point. Or the other example would be, if I can find it, there should be a bit in here where I literally keyframe. Yeah, I do something like this. So like you have 50 million USD, and then right here for a few frames I have it shrink in. Like that's not that bad because it's supposed to be 4:3 for both, and it's just happens to be the state of the footage. You know, tape is tape. But if I can find an example that goes directly from That'd be pretty nice. But I also just generally try to stick. Here's a good example. So you go here and you're in Thomas, and then I need to introduce the 16:9 YouTube video. So what I do is I'm here and I have the black bars come out. I also wipe in the caption because I didn't want the caption to awkwardly like be halfway in for very long. I wanted it to look like it was coming out from under the caption or wiping in some capacity, because I thought that looked more smooth. Because once again, video's in motion. So when it's like here, it looks better, but when you go frame by frame, it might not be. So I basically got rid of the black bars there, or rather, in the Icy Crystals footage, I introduced the black bars and then removed them, so it looked consistent. And that way, then. And then when I go back to Thomas, I do a similar thing. And I do that specifically because then there's context that, there's less distraction with regards to how those black bars are introduced, right? Now here, I can do a cut. And the reason why I can do a cut is because this same footage right here is on the computer right here. Right? And not a lot of, people might not notice that right away, and people might not notice it when watching the video at all. And yes, this desk is a mess, and yes, it is just as messy right now. And yes, when I do shoot footage of this desk for the next video I'm working on, I'm probably going to clean it up first, because I was infuriated that right here there's a post-it note with some numbers on it, and people are going to forever try and figure out what those numbers are. And thankfully, those numbers don't mean anything. Right? I'll let you figure it out. No, seriously, there's nothing with those numbers. So anyway, so the deal is that because I'm talking about editing, right, I can say, video editor. So I introduce the video editor here, and I introduce me as the video editor because I'm the one editing this video that you're watching right now. That's the whole idea. So then I can go here into the NLE. So if you didn't notice that I'm editing the Thomas footage here, you are going to notice it when I cut into the editor. So this is, effectively like if you're in like a film or sitcom or I don't know, any sort of show, right? The stereotype is that you start on a wide shot, sometimes an exterior of a building that they're in. Then you get a mid shot of like, a somewhat closer environment. So let's say you're sitting in a restaurant, right? Your first shot is the exterior of the restaurant. Your second shot is the table. And then your third shot is the first person that's talking. Freaking Snapchat being Snapchat. Yeah, it doesn't make this iPhone, whatever. It used to make a like yeah, I don't know, like it sounds like a click Snapchat sound. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't do that anymore. I don't know why I did it differently. But so your wide shot or your first shot, your establishing shot is of the restaurant. Then you have a shot of the table. Then you have a shot of the first person that talks. Maybe you have a second person in that shot. So maybe that would actually be more described as a mid, because you don't have like a full close up on like one person's face or something. But anyways, you have an establishing shot, you have a shot of like whatever setting, and then you have a shot of the specific thing. So here I'm doing that just in the context of not a setting, but rather, video editing. So we're here's the show. This is the wider subject. This is the wider thing of the video, right? But this isn't a video about Thomas. Like I said, this is a video about video editing. So the setting is I'm sitting at a desk editing video. And then the subject of the video is the editor. So these visuals in and of themselves tell you a story about what this video actually is somewhat about. And through doing that, you basically convey this sort of narrative of focusing on the editing process through that. Hopefully that makes sense to people that don't get it. But these are the kind of things I think about when I'm going to make a video. Because I think the thing is that instead of, the key isn't just to put relevant footage to what you're talking about. The key is, at least from my perspective, as someone that's like, as a video editor, someone that cares about this process. And I'm not saying like, if you like don't put this much into it that you can't make a good video or something, but it's like, this is what I do. So like, I'm gonna put more into it. So, it's not just put relevant footage. It's the footage itself should sort of, the way you present that footage should mirror sort of the story you want to tell in some respect. Yeah. So then we go from here, and then we go back out, and then this is the shot that took me multiple takes to do. I'm still using my voiceover audio for the whole thing. This is something that if it was done in reverse order, it would be called ADR, which stands for Automated Dialogue Replacement. And by automated, I mean it's not automated at all. It means that it's very manual. But I think the automated stands for something. Maybe I'm incorrect. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. So basically, I had to like listen to this voiceover audio over and over because I like the voiceover audio, and I had to time my reading of it on camera to that instead. So I had to do it backwards, which is fun. But the only part I don't know. I think it. Before editing this voiceover audio that you're listening to right now. Like, I think that timed out pretty well. And then I recorded the rest of this bit as I fade in here, and that didn't line up as well, so I was just like, okay, fine, we're just going to do the show anyway. Because it's about getting footage, so might as well show footage, okay. And of course, right here, I get rid of the black bar, so I didn't even have to scroll that far in the video to find it, but I found it anyway. So that's good. And then we're back here. We're back to me editing, right? And this glare sucks. This is from the light. And if I'd positioned the light better, or if I just pointed it up slightly, could have just pointed it up slightly, and this wouldn't be there. There's also this square right here. This square is from the other light. But you know, these are things that like, I don't know. I basically, I'm gonna keep nitpicking. That's what I'm saying. So then what we do here is then we say, okay, we're going to go to some black. We're going to introduce the idea of, okay, well, you need to like film this. So then I have this bad take, which I intentionally didn't want to be too bad because I didn't want it to like ruin the video, but I wanted it to be bad enough for someone to communicate the fact that, okay, well, clearly this is not being filmed as well. So all I did is I just, you know, went outside and just kind of like pointed the camera up and lived my life at the, you know, facing the sky. You don't see my mouth talking. I'm really dark compared to the sky, the clouds, you know, all that. Yeah, so that's that. All that's that. Then what I can do is then I can say, okay, well, you hand that to an editor and they're like, what the hell's going on? Oh, wow, I didn't expect to yawn this much, but it's been a long week, so I guess I expect it. I didn't expect it, but I should expect is what I'm saying. So now, I told you about ADR. ADR happens right here. This is the actual process of ADR. It's funny because I say, oh, like, if you film it better, then be fine. But I actually cheated, and that's the fun thing, is that a lot of the things that you often see in stuff is somewhat cheated to some degree. And often the cheating, like when I say cheating, I don't mean they're taking a shortcut. That's not necessarily what I mean. What I mean is that they're cheating. So they're making you think that something was done one way when it was actually done a different way. Now I'm not going to say I'm an ADR master, but I think this lined up pretty well. The key is that your ADR, the nature of how your audio was recorded, needs to match the environment with which it would sound normally. So for example, right, like if I can't record this ADR audio in a closet because then it would be very obvious that I'm in a closet. It would be very obvious because my audio would sound very dampened. It would sound like I'm in a vocal booth because a closet is a good equivalent for a vocal booth if you want to do it that way. So instead, what I did is I didn't go outside because outside has the noise problems that I had outside when I shot this footage originally. What I did do was, I basically went into an a relatively echo-free space because I wanted it to be like, oh, you're standing outside, the sound's just going to go. It's not going to bounce off of the walls, right? So you go into a relatively echo-free space, and then you back way up away from your mic, and then you turn up the input, right? So you turn up the amount that the sensitivity, the amount of audio that'll go into the mic, and through doing that, then you're going to sound more distant, which matches that up. And then I believe I did a bit of EQ on this as well, just to make it sound, as close to what I thought it should sound like as possible. Now, the other thing is Foley work. Foley, don't ask me where that name came from. The only thing I know about Foley is it's that motivational speaker skit that Chris Farley did on Saturday Night Live. But what Foley is it's basically the idea of, because you can't record the sound, it's similar to ADR in the sense that since you can't record the sound effects of a particular thing in the exact space as it's happening live often, because that would require you putting mics in very strange places. You basically record the audio elsewhere and then, make it sound however you need it to sound and then put it in. Conveniently, this Foley work was very basic in the sense that I didn't need to create the sounds out of anything. I just needed to record the exact same thing I'm doing in the shot next to a microphone. So I did that. So here you have the click of the relatively shitty tripod. You have the inserting of an eighth inch mic jack into the mic jack, and then you have the putting of the chair down on concrete patio tile in my family's backyard. Nice. So you do those things. And I basically just recorded them next to a mic, which I couldn't do because the mic can't be in the shot, right? This second one probably could, but I didn't think of it at the time. And at the time, I was like, I'll just Foley all of it. And it probably sounds better as a result of it, right? On a lot of, if you're doing Foley work professionally, a lot of times what you need to do, and what a lot of I know that, like, back in college, for example, a lot of my film and television student peers, they would get projects, like basically audio projects, where they just had to recreate specific sounds, because that basically trains them to have this sort of the sort of mindset you need to have in order to think of recreating something, right? So if you wanted to recreate the sound of footsteps, the obvious thing to do is to get a pair of shoes and, get an appropriate surface and then go for it. But when you think of something similar to, like, I don't know, rustling of leaves or the wind, or, what about the sound of, like, a house being torn apart by, like, a tornado or something like that? Those kind of sound effects aren't things that you can just, capture in real time. Those aren't things that you can capture live, because a lot of the more, like, special effects or artistic or whatever in certain things, they need to be basically created, right? So, like, when a house falls apart in a movie, like, sometimes you'll have a practical effect, but a lot of it is going to be CG at this point. So if it's going to be CG animated, then you need to create those sounds, and it doesn't need to be like some crazy CG movie, but point being, there are instances in which you need to basically create the sound from scratch. So what kind of things would sound similar to the thing that you want it to sound like, and then record that, and then do a bunch of various effects and EQs and all that fun stuff on that audio to make it sound exactly the way you need it to sound, and then you'd put that sound effect in here. So in this case, like I said, I just recorded the things next to a mic and it sounds fine. The chair has 2 hits, which was very important, because when I recorded the audio the first time, I didn't notice that the front legs hit first and then the back legs hit. It's not very much, but it's actually the left legs. I'm looking at it now, because you can see right here, the front left leg hits right there, and then the rest of the chair goes down. So because of that, you needed the 2 hits on that, or else it wouldn't sound right. So details like that are super important when you're looking at that kind of stuff, or because the second it doesn't sound right, the entire illusion's broken. The idea is that I didn't do any of this. All of this was just there the whole time. So funnily enough, it's like I'm telling you about video production in this video, but I'm actually hiding some stuff from you, which is always fun. So then we go in here. This is pretty standard stuff. You just kind of go in here, you show the Thomas, I farted, you go into this is some documentary footage behind the Thomas and the Magic Railroad movie, which was, I think this had Alec Baldwin in it, right? Didn't it have Alec Baldwin in it? I think it did. So it different from the show, but it was the only behind the scenes footage I could really find. To show you like, oh, this is a super well lit space. Like, look at all these lights in order to make this happen. Look at all this camera crew, and then observe how it looks in the actual show. Right? It's like sort of this before after thing. Now, I'm not thrilled that I had to use this videotape editing situation, because it looks kind of like archival footage, and it is. It's from the 50s, but at the same time, I think it's a really good tutorial in the sense that it really shows you what video editing used to be before you had software like this, because it shows the physical slicing of tape and all that fun stuff. And just watching that, like, honestly, like, go watch that documentary because it's super enlightening. It's not a documentary. It's like it's a training video. It's like, I want to say somewhere in the vein of like 15 minutes, 20 minutes long, something like that. I don't remember. Here's some more behind the scenes stuff, and then this is behind the scenes of Friends. And the reason why I picked Friends is because it fits that sort of stereotypical sitcom narrative of like, because I was talking about how sitcoms usually are on these built sets. So it's like, okay, let's get a stereotypical sitcom, and then let's get the behind the scenes of that sitcom. So thankfully, Friends does have a very well-known documentary behind the scenes episode that I used. So we have this footage of them building the studio, right? Building the set. And then you can see how this set is in the show. And that's the idea there anyway. And then this is another bit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to the location, blah, blah, blah. Then we talk about kids shows being animated, so we just show a bunch of different kids shows. And I wanted to get variety here because I didn't want to pick on any particular kids show. And then I also included Bear in the Big Blue House because I like that show. And that also was a good transition. You have the puppets going to Sesame Street, which is my other main example. This 60 Minutes package is really, really good. I really liked it. I wish there was something more from the early days, like there was some more like behind the scenes stuff like this. But this works for what it was. So I transitioned to the modern Sesame Street, and so in here, Bear in the Big Blue House is actually a 4:3 show, but I zoomed into 16:9 because I had already transitioned to the HD format shows, so I might as well just zoom it in. So that's another example of that anyway. We have here, I made the text look like it was part of the tape, so you intentionally degraded it a bit. So that was fun. Why did I do blue for Britain and that for the US? Don't ask. I have no idea. I mean, green money, but I don't know where the blue came from. Doing all this fun stuff. Like this at this point is like pretty basic stuff, so I don't really have too much to talk about here. And a lot of like my thought process behind the writing of this kind of, I don't know, I already talked about it, and there isn't really too much here. I do think that this edition here, talking about YouTubers doing this is super important. This sort of plays into the, this isn't a video about Thomas, this isn't a video about video editing, this is a video about, being creative and creativity and making art and committing to it and all that fun stuff. So it's like talking to YouTubers about this idea of like, if you make something that's like really cool and really inspiring and really well done, then you're going to inspire other people to do the same thing, which is really neat. And Thomas is a great example of that because it's so practically done. If you watch like an animated show, all that can do is transplant you into the world of that show, which is a really cool thing. I'm not dismissing that. The cool thing about Thomas, which I say in the thing, is that it's representing something that kids that are watching the show can also do, and that's something that I really sort of. At least with things I create, I like the idea of someone taking something away and then actively applying it, rather than just being like, oh, cool, I learned that, I don't know. That's sort of how I feel about the Eminem video now. Like, I mean, obviously I made a reflection on that video, right? Back then. But when I say, like, I've said this many times that I want to go look back on my older videos and not like them. And I don't say that because I wasn't proud of them at the time, or that I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it was the best I could do at the time. And that's how I view it. But I feel like the Eminem video is a really good example of a video that's well done, but I don't think when you watch that video and you come out of it, I don't think you pull anything out of it and really apply it to yourself. I think all you do is come out of it saying, okay, well, Eminem's kind of a jerk, and I'd be inclined to agree, but I don't think that there's another level to it that I sort of want to hit with videos. And I think this video, while it didn't get like crazy meta or anything like that, right? And not all videos have to. I do think it sort of hits at that, which is why I'm proud of this video. Really proud of it. So go here, and then what happens is this is when we start to introduce the behind the scenes of me making the intro. So at the end of the video, right, as you saw, I recreated the intro to Thomas the Tank Engine. So I go here and I do nope, this is the intro to the new show. I go so this idea basically stemmed from the YouTube thing that I was just talking about. It's this idea that, like, if Thomas is this show that, like, inspires kids to play with toy trains, and obviously there's a merchandising angle to it, but, you know, like, whatever. If it inspires kids to be creative, then I want to practically apply that in the most logical way I can. The best part about this shot is that this one you can very clearly see the string attached. And I didn't want to edit that out because I sort of wanted this balance between, like, this looked good, but this also looks homemade and janky, right? Like, I spent, I want to say somewhere in the vein of $20 on the foam board or the felt board that represents the grass, right? You can see these very clearly felt squares, and I just taped blue paper to the background. Like, I'm not making Hollywood, but I think the idea is that it represents my ability to create these shots as without a budget, right? Like, you know, and Thomas was already on a pretty low budget, but you can have no budget, you can have no money, and you can create something great while being inspired by the things that you grew up with, by the things that you love right now. So, you know, if there's a musician that you really like, then just go make music. And yeah, you can start by sounding like that musician, and maybe, you know, at first, like, if you release it publicly, maybe people will riff on you for that. But I think that experience educates you, and then you sort of pull into your own style. With my own videos, right? I started, you know, with the Let's Play thing from you know, a bunch of different, you know, gaming YouTubers that I enjoyed, your Chugga Conroy's, Nintendo Capri Suns, and, like, if you're not into that crowd, you don't even know what I'm talking about. The one was a Minecraft Let's Player. At the time, he was known as Banana Pylord. Now he makes incredible music under the name I'm Sleepless. And if you're into you know, I guess Christian themed music, which I'm not particularly. He also does some, like, acoustic songs with those sort of themings. I would say that they sound really good because they have the same sort of, you know, the same guy. But I really like I Am Sleepless. But anyway, so I'm inspired by these creators, and then I go and make my own thing. And over time, I found my style doing that thing, and then eventually kind of grew dissatisfied with it and blah, blah, blah. So then I find a new wave of this sort of video essay thing, and I keep pulling inspirations from different crowds and different people, and then I apply it, and then eventually forge my own style. And that's why when I did the season 2 thing, the season 2 is representative of I found that style. Like with the 8th grade video in season 1, that was at the point I view where I found my style. I know what I want to shoot for with every video. And then that's why I decided to do the season 2 thing, even though it doesn't mean anything on YouTube. Like, that's why I framed it that way anyway. So that's sort of what I wanted to get at with this video. That's sort of the idea behind this video. And when I went and filmed, right, like, the biggest, thing for budget wise for this video was the lights. And that's just because, most indoor areas are not lit well enough for camera. If you didn't know, this for people that aren't familiar with video production, really, the default way, right? The default thing that, like, if you're filming something on your phone, the way your phone handles it is usually to either, let in a lot of light on some of like the bigger phone camera lenses, or to just brighten up the whole image. And a lot of phones now, the reason why the images look so good on cell phones now isn't because, they necessarily have the best lenses or anything like that. It's just because they have good software inside the phone that sort of does a fix it and post sort of thing. They can, do this, algorithmic and learning algorithmic edge detection on people to blur out backgrounds on like the pixels and things like that. Like, it's super fascinating technology, but if you want to use real hardware, if you want to use a real camera, if you want to use all that, then really what you need is extremely well lit and evenly lit, unless you're going for a particular style, of course. In the circle of people I know, unless you're Sean, you want an evenly lit and well lit environment for what you're shooting. So especially with something like Thomas, where we saw earlier in the documentary footage, very evenly lit. They had lights suspended from the ceiling, and they were very powerful, like very plentiful lights. So unfortunately, I didn't have that kind of budget. I got two LCD panels basically, but they work and they're pretty bright. I would like to get a third. I would also like to get a fill light at some point, but those things come with time, because if you want to know what the fill light does, the absence of a fill light is why there's two shadows right here that are very easy to see. If you had a fill light, the idea is the fill light would basically brighten up the background and basically fill in the lighting space. Because right now, right, the light light moves in a straight line from the direction of the source of the light. So what you do is, if you just held a light bulb, right, then your shadows would be extremely prominent. The next move would be to put a bunch of light bulbs on a panel, and then those shoot in a straight line, and then they give you a shadow. The next move is to diffuse the light, and the way you would do that is by using, sometimes they're like in what you would call like a softbox or something like that. Sometimes you have those like moving like shutter doors, which are what I have on these lights. Sometimes it's a combination of the two. Sometimes it's just a sheet of like I guess I'm trying to think of the right word, like what the right material is, but like, basically a foggy paper, a foggy white paper that basically diffuses, like reduces the intensity of in terms of brightness, but also, when I say diffuse, I literally mean spread. So it's not as directional as it were. The problem is that light still moves in a relatively straight line. You can do all those things, and it's still gonna give you shadows unless you fill it out. So ideally, that's what you want. But we're managing. We're doing what we can. And I should mention while I'm saying this, right? Like, I'm when I do these behind the scenes videos, and I think I'm gonna end here actually, and then just kind of move on to the Mario Kart video. When I do these behind the scenes videos, I don't want to come off like I know everything, right? Because I don't. I'll be frank and say that, even though I certainly have a better job than I did when I wrote this script, I will say at the end of the day, I would call it, fairly, low level. And when I say low level, I don't mean low level like, oh, I suck. I mean just low experience level. You know what I mean? Like, I'm there in part to do work and get paid, but I'm also there to learn. And that's sort of, that's what I love doing, is continuing to learn and continuing to grow and continuing to change. So I would like, in a year or two, right? Just like I said with the Eminem video, right? Like how, I wish that it was written differently. So that way it, made some sort of, somewhat larger statement than just being about Eminem. I would like to come back to this reflection that I'm making right now and in like a year or two and talk about how wrong I was about a lot of the things that I talked about here. So if you're an expert on this, if you've had like 10 years experience, 20 years experience, hell, 60 years experience, I don't freaking know, and you tell me how wrong I am about lighting, then one, by all means, please do tell me how wrong I am about lighting. But two, like I don't want to come off as if I have that experience, because I don't. And that's to me, that's the most exciting thing, is I like the idea of constantly improving, constantly getting better. I want every video to be better than my last, and sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. Like I said, I don't think the Mario Odyssey video is better than the Objectivity video, but I think this video is my best video to date until hopefully the next video comes out. Which, it's about two rappers, and it's comparing two of their albums. And I mean, maybe I'll make a thumbnail over the weekend, and then maybe I'll actually announce it. Or I can just say it now for the people that are here. I'm comparing Kanye West's Yeezus to Logic's Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. But following the theme of what I said during this reflection, it's a video about that, but it's also not a video about that. And the way that video is written, its structure is very deliberate, and I'm really happy with how that writing turned out. So I'm hoping that the post-production process also, bears some new fruit and makes that my best video to date. With that, I'm going to go talk about my Mario Kart video. Go watch that if you're interested. That one's going to be considerably shorter than this, I would imagine.